My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought I'd become the kind of woman who breaks into apartments armed with itching powder and cold calculation. But marriage has a way of reshaping us, doesn't it? Especially when you discover that the man you've loved for 47 years has been rewriting your story without your permission. It started 3 months ago, though I suppose the signs had been there longer. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Robert, my Robert, with his wire-rimmed glasses and methodical way of folding the newspaper, had become a stranger who smelled of unfamiliar perfume and checked his phone with the intensity of a man defusing a bomb. "Late meeting," he'd say, kissing my cheek with lips that no longer lingered. "Don't wait up." I'd nod, smile, play the part of the understanding wife. But understanding and stupidity are not the same thing, though they often wear the same face. The night I followed him, rain hammered against the windshield of my old sedan, the car he'd suggested I donate because we only need one vehicle, Eleanor, and mine is more reliable. I stayed 3 cars back, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape the truth before I had to face it. He didn't go to the office. Of course he didn't. He went to Cherry Lane Apartments, a modern building with too much glass and too little character, the kind of place where young professionals with more ambition than wisdom paid too much rent for too little space. He parked in the visitor's lot, checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, actually checked his reflection like a teenage boy on a first date, and disappeared into the building's gleaming entrance. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching rain streak down the windows, creating rivers that divided and merged like the timelines of a marriage fracturing in real time. Part of me wanted to drive home, crawl into bed, and pretend I'd never seen anything. That part of me was tired and wanted peace at any price. But there was another part, a part I'd silenced for decades in favor of being the good wife, the accommodating partner, the woman who made things easy. And that part was furious. I pulled out my phone and called Robert. "Eleanor?" He sounded breathless, guilty. "Is everything all right?" "Fine, dear. I just wondered when you'd be home from your meeting." A pause. In that silence, I heard everything he wasn't saying. "Oh, probably another hour. Thompson is being particularly difficult about the contract terms." Thompson. He didn't even have the creativity to invent a believable lie. Thompson retired 8 months ago. I knew because I'd attended his retirement party, made small talk with his wife about grandchildren and garden tomatoes, while Robert worked the room like he was running for office. "Take your time," I said, sweetly. "I'll leave the porch light on." I hung up before he could respond. The next day, I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Chen, a former police detective with kind eyes and a wedding ring he twisted when delivering bad news. He came to the house while Robert was at work, actual work this time I assumed, and sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee from the good china I only used for guests. "Mrs. Mitchell, I want you to understand what you're asking for. Sometimes the truth is harder to carry than suspicion." I met his eyes. "Young man, I've carried suspicion for 3 months. It's gotten heavier every day. Whatever the truth weighs, at least I'll know exactly what I'm holding." He nodded slowly. "I'll need a week, maybe less." It took him 4 days. Her name was Vanessa Harlow, 29 years old, a marketing consultant at Robert's firm. Of course she worked with him. Of course she was young enough to be our granddaughter. The cliché of it would have been funny if it hadn't been shredding my heart into confetti. Marcus provided photographs. Robert and Vanessa at restaurants I'd never been to, their heads bent together in laughter I rarely heard anymore. Robert and Vanessa entering her apartment building at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, the same Tuesday he'd told me he had a late meeting. Robert and Vanessa kissing in the parking garage of his office building with the desperate intensity of people who thought they were hidden. "There's more," Marcus said quietly, sliding a financial report across the table. "He's been paying her rent. Transferred $5,000 to her account on the 1st of every month for the past 7 months. There are also charges to jewelry stores, high-end restaurants, a weekend at the Belmont Hotel and Spa." I stared at the numbers. Our money. Money I'd helped save through 47 years of careful budgeting, clipped coupons, and, do we really need that, dear? Being spent on a woman who probably didn't even know that Robert used to sing Can't Help Falling in Love while doing dishes, or that he cried at every single one of our daughter's school plays, or that he'd held my hand through 3 miscarriages before we finally had Jenny. Mrs. Mitchell? Marcus's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you all right? Was I all right? No, but I would be. I'm fine, I said, hearing the steel in my own voice. What else do you have? He hesitated. There are text messages. I was able to access his phone records through, let's call them unconventional means. Would you like to see them? I nodded. The messages made me feel like I was reading about strangers. Robert, my methodical, reserved Robert, sent emojis, hearts and kissy faces. He called her baby and my beautiful girl. He promised her things. Soon, my love. Just need to figure out the right time. The right time for what? To leave me? To announce that 47 years had an expiration date after all? One message stood out. She suspects nothing. Eleanor is so trusting, it almost makes me feel guilty. Almost. I read that line 5 times. Each time, something inside me hardened a little more, like molten glass cooling into something sharp and unbreakable. Thank you, Marcus, I said, closing the folder. How much do I owe you? Mrs. Mitchell, about what happens next. How much? He told me. I wrote him a check from my private account, the one Robert didn't know about, opened 30 years ago when my mother died, and left me a small inheritance. Emergency money, she'd called it. Every woman needs something of her own, Eleanor, something he can't touch. Mom would have approved of what I was planning. After Marcus left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, watching afternoon shadows stretch across the floor. I thought about confronting Robert directly, demanding explanations, trying to save a marriage that was already dead. I just hadn't been invited to the funeral. But what would that accomplish? He'd apologize, probably, maybe even cry. He'd promise it was a mistake, a midlife crisis, a momentary lapse in judgment lasting 7 months and $35,000. He might even end things with Vanessa. And then what? Would I spend the rest of my life wondering if he was really at the office, checking his phone records, smelling his shirts for traces of her perfume? That wasn't a marriage. That was a prison sentence. No, if this was ending, and it would end on my terms. I spent the next 2 weeks studying them, their patterns, their schedules, their habits. I learned that Robert visited Vanessa every Tuesday and Thursday evening, like clockwork. I learned that Vanessa went to yoga class every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 o'clock at a studio 3 blocks from her apartment. I learned that she left her bathroom window cracked open, probably for ventilation in that overpriced shoebox she lived in. I also learned something about myself. I was much better at deception than I'd ever imagined. 47 years of reading Robert's moods, anticipating his needs, smoothing over his frustrations, all of that had made me an expert in observation and adaptation. I'd just never thought to weaponize those skills before. The Tuesday I put my plan into action, I told Robert I was going to my book club. "Have fun, dear," he said, already halfway to the door, his phone vibrating with what I knew was a text from Vanessa. He kissed my cheek with the same mechanical affection you'd give a maiden aunt. I smiled and waved from the doorway, watching his taillights disappear down the street. Then I changed into dark clothes, grabbed my supplies, and drove to Cherry Lane Apartments. Breaking into Vanessa's apartment was surprisingly easy. The bathroom window was indeed cracked open, and I was smaller and more flexible than people assumed. Years of yoga, the real kind, not whatever trendy version Vanessa practiced, meant I could still contort myself through tight spaces. I landed in her bathroom with barely a sound. Her apartment smelled like vanilla and ambition, expensive candles burning away the scent of someone else's husband. The bathroom counter was cluttered with products, serums and creams and things with French names that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. And there, hanging on a hook behind the door, was the lingerie. Black lace, red silk, something in emerald green that looked more like dental floss than underwear, tags still attached to some pieces, recent purchases, funded by my grocery money, my utility budget, my carefully saved emergency fund that Robert had somehow discovered and drained. I pulled out the itching powder I'd purchased from a novelty shop 2 towns over, paying cash, wearing sunglasses like I was in a spy movie. The teenager at the counter had barely looked up from his phone. I could have been buying nuclear launch codes for all he cared. The powder was colorless and scentless, designed for pranks. But in the right hands, or the wrong hands, depending on your perspective, it could be devastatingly effective. I dusted every piece of lingerie thoroughly, paying special attention to the seams and the areas that would press against skin. I worked methodically, carefully, making sure to leave no trace of my presence. When I finished, I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. Then I explored the rest of the apartment. I'm not proud of the voyeurism, but I needed to understand who this woman was. Who was Vanessa Harlow, the woman my husband loved enough to betray 47 years of marriage? Her living room was magazine perfect. White furniture that would be impossible to keep clean with children or pets, abstract art that looked expensive but said nothing. Books arranged by color rather than author because they were decoration, not companions. No photographs of family, just selfies and pictures of Vanessa at various events, always posed, always perfect. Her refrigerator contained white wine, yogurt, and what appeared to be 3-week-old takeout. Her desk held a laptop and a stack of papers, work documents, I assumed, and didn't investigate further. I wasn't interested in her professional life, but I was interested in the small velvet box hidden in her nightstand drawer. I opened it with trembling fingers. A diamond ring, substantial, expensive, exactly the kind of ostentatious declaration that Robert had never been able to afford when he proposed to me at 22, with a ring that cost 3 months of his grocery store clerk's salary. There was a note tucked beneath the ring box. For when the time is right, I love you more than I thought possible. R. The time, the right time, the moment he'd been promising in those text messages. He was planning to propose to her, to marry her, while still married to me. I carefully replaced everything, closed the drawer, and climbed back out the bathroom window. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, my mind clear and cold as winter water. Robert came home at 11:30, smelling of her perfume and lies. "How was your meeting?" I asked from the couch where I'd been pretending to read. "Exhausting. Thompson is impossible." He wasn't even trying to keep his lies straight anymore. "I'm heading to bed." "Good night, dear." I waited until I heard him snoring, the deep, congested sound that had been the soundtrack of my nights for decades, before I finally let myself feel it. The rage, the grief, the humiliation of being so thoroughly discarded. I cried into a dish towel in the kitchen so he wouldn't hear me, but I only allowed myself 20 minutes. Then I washed my face, made tea, and waited for the next act. It came at approximately 9:47 the following evening, another late meeting night. My phone buzzed with a notification. I'd installed tracking software on Robert's phone 2 weeks ago while he was in the shower. Another skill I'd acquired during my crash course in espionage. The technology was surprisingly simple once you got past the moral implications. Robert's phone registered at Cherry Lane Apartments. Then, at 9:49, came the text. I'd set up alerts for any messages between Robert and Vanessa. This one made me smile. Vanessa. "Baby, I don't feel well. Something's wrong." Robert. "What do you mean? What's wrong?" Vanessa. "I don't know. I'm itchy. Like really itchy. Everywhere." Robert. "Did you eat something? Allergic reaction?" Vanessa. "No, it's not like that. It's burning. Oh my God, it's burning." 3 minutes later, "Something's burning." And then, "I can't stop scratching. What the hell is happening?" I imagined the scene. Vanessa in her beautiful lingerie, purchased with my husband's guilt money, feeling the powder activate against her skin. The itching would start mild, almost ticklish. Then it would intensify, burning, maddening, impossible to ignore. She'd scratch, which would only spread it further, grinding the powder deeper into her pores. Robert would be panicking, his sexy evening ruined by his mistress's mysterious affliction. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Vanessa. I'm taking everything off. I think it's the underwear. Did you put something on it? Is this a joke? Robert. What? No. Why would I? Vanessa. Then how the fuck did something get on my underwear, Robert? This isn't funny. Robert. Calm down. Maybe it's the laundry detergent. Or... Vanessa. I've been using the same detergent for years. This is something else. This is deliberate. Smart girl. Not smart enough to avoid married men, but smart enough to recognize sabotage. Robert. That's crazy. Who would... And then silence. I could almost see the moment the realization hit him. Who would have access to her apartment? Who would have motivation? Who did he describe as so trusting in his messages? My phone rang. Robert. I let it ring 4 times before answering, taking my time, making him sweat. Hello? Eleanor. His voice was tight. Where are you? Home. Where else would I be? Is everything all right with your meeting? Silence. I could hear background noise. Vanessa crying, water running, the chaos of someone trying desperately to wash away something that had already done its work. I need to ask you something, he said slowly, and I need you to tell me the truth. Of course, dear. We've always been honest with each other, haven't we? The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Did you... He stopped, started again. Have you been following me? Following you? Robert, what on earth are you talking about? I'm sitting in our living room watching Masterpiece Theater. Are you feeling all right? I need to come home. We need to talk. About what? Eleanor, please. I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. Come home, I said gently. We'll talk. He arrived 35 minutes later, walking into the house like a man approaching the gallows. I was still on the couch, teacup in hand, the picture of elderly, domestic tranquility. Eleanor, would you like tea? You look stressed. I don't want tea. I want to know what you've done. I set down my cup carefully. What I've done? Robert, you're speaking in riddles. Vanessa, he stopped, realizing his mistake. Vanessa? I tilted my head. Who's Vanessa? His face cycled through several emotions, panic, calculation, resignation. He collapsed into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 74 years. You know. I know many things, Robert. I know that Vanessa Harlow is 29 years old and works in marketing at your firm. I know you've transferred $35,000 to her over the past 7 months. I know about the Belmont Hotel and Spa, the jewelry from Cartier, the rent you pay for her apartment at Cherry Lane. I know you check your reflection before seeing her, like a boy on his first date. I know you bought her a diamond ring that costs more than the one you gave me 47 years ago. Each fact landed like a stone in still water. I know you call her baby and my beautiful girl. I know you promised her soon. Soon you'd leave me. Soon you'd start your new life. Soon the old wife would be disposed of like expired milk. Robert's face had gone gray. Eleanor, I also know, I continued, my voice never rising, never shaking, that tonight, Vanessa discovered that someone had contaminated her lingerie with itching powder, the expensive lingerie you bought her, the lingerie she was probably wearing for you when the burning started. You broke into her apartment. It wasn't a question. Broke in implies damage. I simply visited. Through the bathroom window she leaves open. Really, Robert, if you're going to set up a mistress, you should at least ensure she has basic security awareness. This is crazy. You're crazy? I smiled. Perhaps. Or perhaps I'm just a woman who spent 47 years being understanding, accommodating, and invisible, and decided she was tired of playing that role. I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why my husband of 47 years decided I was disposable? Can you explain why you thought I was so stupid, so trusting, so pathetically grateful for your attention that I wouldn't notice you leaving pieces of yourself all over town? Can you explain why you spent our retirement savings on a woman who doesn't know that you snore, or that you cry at school plays, or that you proposed to me with a ring that cost 3 months of grocery clerk's salary because it was all you could afford? Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice remained steady. Can you explain, Robert, why 47 years of my life wasn't enough? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know, he finally whispered. I don't know what happened. She made me feel young again, vital, like I mattered. And I didn't make you feel that way? You made me feel safe, comfortable, like an old sweater. And you wanted to be a new shirt. He flinched. That's exactly it, Robert. You wanted novelty, excitement, the fantasy of being someone other than who you are. And you know what? That's human. That's understandable. Men have been having midlife crises since the invention of the midlife. But you didn't just have a crisis. You built an entire alternate life. You spent our money, made promises, bought rings. You didn't just betray me, Robert. You erased me. What do you want me to say? Nothing. There's nothing you can say that would matter now. He stood, paced, sat back down. Was it you? The itching powder? I smiled. Proof would be difficult to obtain, wouldn't it? And Vanessa can't very well go to the police and say, someone broke into my apartment and pranked my affair lingerie. Think of the questions that would raise. This is blackmail. No, dear. Blackmail implies I want something from you. I don't want anything anymore. I just wanted you to know that I know. That I've always known. That every lie you told, every late meeting, every Tuesday and Thursday evening I was aware. I chose my moment. I chose my response. I chose to stop being the understanding wife and become something else. What are you going to do? That depends on what you're going to do. Robert looked at his hands. I can't leave her. I love her. And there it was. The truth, finally. Not apologetic, not ashamed, just simple fact. He loved her more than he loved me. 47 years, reduced to 7 months of novelty. Then leave, I said quietly. Pack your things and go to her. Nurse her through her mysterious itching affliction. Propose with that vulgar diamond. Start your new life. Eleanor, but understand this, Robert. You don't get to keep anything of ours. Not the house, not the savings, not the retirement accounts, not the family photos, not Jenny's baby book, not a single memory you don't carry in your head. You want to trade 47 years for a 29-year-old marketing consultant? Fine, but you're making that trade with empty pockets. I'm entitled to half of everything. Are you? Shall we discuss that with a judge? Shall we present evidence of how you've been systematically draining our accounts to fund your affair? Shall I show the court the tracking data, the text messages Marcus Chen provided, the financial records, the receipts from the Belmont Hotel? Shall we discuss how you're still legally married to me while buying engagement rings for other women? His face went from gray to green. You can fight me, I continued, but it will be expensive, public, and ultimately futile. Or you can sign divorce papers agreeing to my terms. You leave with your personal belongings and whatever dignity you can salvage. I keep everything else. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You spent $35,000 of our retirement on your mistress's rent. You bought her a ring that cost twice what our current car is worth. You promised her a future using resources I helped build, and you want to discuss fair? Robert stood. I need to think. You have 24 hours. After that, I file for divorce and include every piece of evidence Marcus collected. I'll make sure Jenny knows everything. I'll make sure your colleagues know everything. I'll make sure everyone at that firm knows exactly what kind of man you are. You wouldn't do that to Jenny. You did it to Jenny when you decided her father was disposable at 74. I'm just making sure she knows the truth instead of some sanitized version you'll try to spin. He walked to the door, paused. I did love you, Eleanor. I still do, in a way. In a way, I nodded. How comforting. Now get out of my house. He left. I sat in the silence for a long time, feeling everything and nothing simultaneously. I'd won, I suppose, but winning felt hollow when the prize was the death certificate of a marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Vanessa Harlow. We need to talk." I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let Robert handle the fallout of his choices. But I'd come this far. Might as well see it through. I typed, "Tomorrow, coffee shop on Main Street, 10 a.m. She responded immediately, "I'll be there." I slept better that night than I had in months. The coffee shop was one of those aggressively quirky places where everything was organic and cost twice what it should. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered tea, and claimed a corner table. Vanessa arrived exactly on time. She looked different than in the photographs. Younger, somehow, despite the circumstances. Her face was blotchy, eyes red. Whether from crying or residual itching, I couldn't tell. She wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup, her hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked like what she was, a 29-year-old girl in over her head. "Mrs. Mitchell?" "Vanessa, please sit." She sat, clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline. "You broke into my apartment." "Did I? You put something on my clothes, my underwear." "Proof would be difficult, as I told Robert." "Why?" Her voice broke. "Why would you do that?" I studied her face. She genuinely seemed confused, like she couldn't understand why the wife might object to the mistress. "How long have you known Robert is married, Vanessa?" She flushed. "From the beginning." But he said, "Let me guess." He said the marriage was over in everything but paperwork. He said we'd grown apart. He said I didn't understand him anymore. He said he stayed out of obligation, duty, maybe concern for my well-being. But he loved you. You were his soulmate, his second chance, his real life, finally beginning after years of gray obligation. She stared at me. "How did you—" "Because those are the same things he probably told the woman before you, and the same things he'd tell the woman after you if I hadn't intervened. You're not special, Vanessa. You're not the great love that justifies destroying a family. You're a cliché in expensive lingerie." "That's not true. Robert loves me." "Robert loves the way you make him feel. There's a difference." "Do you know what happens when you become his wife? When the novelty wears off and you're the one he comes home to every day? When you're the one making grocery lists and nagging him about doctor's appointments and watching his body age and his interests narrow? You'll become what I was, the old sweater. And he'll go looking for a new shirt. You're wrong. We're different. Are you? Tell me something about Robert that you couldn't learn from a dating profile. Tell me something real." She opened her mouth, closed it. He's ambitious, driven. He has dreams he never got to pursue because he settled too young. He has dreams he never pursued because he was too afraid to take risks. I spent 47 years encouraging those dreams, offering to support whatever he wanted to try, and he always found reasons why the timing wasn't right. But that's not a romantic narrative, is it? Better to blame the wife for holding him back. Why did you want to meet me? To see if you knew, if you had any idea what you were participating in. I knew he was married, but we're in love. You're in fantasy. Love is what happens when you've seen someone at their worst and choose them anyway. Love is 47 years of small moments, not 7 months of hotel rooms and sneaking around. What you have with Robert is exciting and forbidden and feels significant precisely because it's secret. But secrets make poor foundations for marriages. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I was young once too, you know. I understand the intoxication of being wanted by someone powerful, established, sophisticated. I understand how easy it is to tell yourself that you're different, that your love is special, that normal rules don't apply. So why did you do it? The itching powder? If you understand so much. I smiled. Because understanding doesn't mean accepting. You needed to know that actions have consequences, that there are people on the other side of your romance, real people with real feelings who aren't going to simply disappear because it's inconvenient for your narrative. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just wanted you to see me, to know that I exist, that I'm not just an obstacle or an inconvenience, but a woman who built a life that you and Robert decided to demolish for entertainment. It's not like that, isn't it? You're 29. The world is full of single men, but you chose a married man 45 years your senior. Why? She didn't answer. I'll tell you why. Because it was easy. Because he pursued you, flattered you, made you feel chosen. Because there's something intoxicating about being the woman who finally unlocks the heart of the complicated older man. It's romantic, it's dramatic, it makes you the heroine of your own story. And what does that make you? The inconvenient first wife, the obstacle overcome, the lesson learned about settling for comfort over passion. I finished my tea. But I'm also the woman who outmaneuvered both of you, who planned her revenge with more strategic precision than you plan your marketing campaigns, and who is walking away from this wreckage with her dignity intact. Vanessa wiped her eyes. He's leaving you. He told me last night. He's choosing me. I know. I told him to. You... what? I don't want him anymore, Vanessa. You can have him. Take him with my blessing. Build your life together. Just understand that you're getting a 74-year-old man who gets winded climbing stairs, who will need you to drive him to doctor's appointments in 10 years, who will probably develop health issues that require constant care right about the time you're hitting your professional peak. You're getting someone who already proved he's willing to lie for years, who spent his retirement savings on you without telling his wife, who built an entire alternate life and maintained it with the skill of a practiced deceiver. He did that because he loves me. He did that because he's selfish. And selfishness doesn't disappear, Vanessa. It just finds new targets. I stood, gathered my purse. Wait, Vanessa said. Is that it? You're just... done? I've been done for months, dear. I just needed Robert to catch up. And I needed you to understand that you didn't win anything worth having. You got the booby prize in a rigged game. I feel sorry for you. I smiled. Don't. Feel sorry for yourself. You're the one who just signed up for a life with a man who will always be comparing you to a ghost. Every time I cross his mind, and I will constantly, because 47 years don't disappear, he'll wonder if he made the right choice. Every time your relationship hits a rough patch, he'll remember that I would have just quietly fixed it without drama. Every time he's sick or scared or vulnerable, he'll think about the woman who knew how he liked his coffee and what side of the bed he preferred and exactly what to say when his mother died. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Vanessa? That itching powder? It was the nice kind, temporary, harmless. But it was a warning. Leave me alone. Leave my daughter alone, and we'll never have to find out what I'm capable of when I'm not being merciful. I left her sitting there, staring into her coffee cup, finally understanding that she'd won a prize that would slowly poison her life. Robert moved out 3 days later. He took his clothes, his laptop, his father's watch. He didn't ask for anything else. Maybe he understood that he'd already taken enough. Maybe he was just eager to start his new life, free of the old sweater wife. Jenny, our daughter, came to visit the day after Robert left. She was 52, a literature professor with her father's methodical nature and my stubborn streak. "Mom," she said, standing in the doorway with grocery bags and the grim determination of someone preparing for emotional warfare. "I heard. Your father told you?" "Told me? He sent a text. A text, Mom. Your mother and I are divorcing. I've moved out. We'll talk later. That's it. That's all I got." I took one of the grocery bags from her. "He's very busy being in love." "Don't." Jenny's voice was sharp. "Don't make jokes. Don't pretend this doesn't hurt. I can see it hurts." And just like that, I was crying again. The ugly, gasping crying I'd been holding back for days. Jenny wrapped her arms around me, and we sank to the kitchen floor together, 2 women holding each other, while a family shattered around us. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I'm so sorry you have to see this." "Sorry? Mom, why are you apologizing? Dad's the one who blew up our family. Because I couldn't keep him. Because 47 years wasn't enough. Because I wasn't enough. Stop. Jenny grabbed my shoulders. You listen to me. You are not responsible for Dad's choices. You are not inadequate because he decided to be a walking cliché. You are the woman who raised me, who built a home, who held this family together while he sleepwalked through decades. And if he's too stupid to value that, that's his failure, not yours. He loves her, Jenny. He loves the way she makes him feel. There's a difference. Real love isn't just excitement and novelty. Real love is showing up. It's staying. It's choosing the same person every day, even when they're not exciting. You did that. He didn't. That's on him. I wiped my eyes. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. We spent the afternoon together, drinking tea and sorting through 47 years of accumulated life. Jenny helped me pack Robert's remaining belongings, things he'd been too eager to leave behind in his rush toward his new beginning. What are you going to do? Jenny asked, folding one of Robert's old sweaters. Are you okay financially? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Your father left me almost everything in the divorce agreement. Jenny's eyebrows rose. He just agreed to that? I was very persuasive. Mom. She studied my face. What did you do? I told her. All of it. The investigation, the photographs, the itching powder, the confrontation. Jenny's expression cycled through shock, horror, and finally, reluctant admiration. You broke into her apartment. Through a window she left open. Honestly, the security in that building is abysmal. You committed multiple crimes. Allegedly. Jenny laughed, a surprised sound that seemed to startle her. I don't know whether to be horrified or impressed. Can you be both? I think I am both. She folded another sweater. Does Dad know it was you? For sure? He knows, but proving it would require admitting to the affair, explaining why someone would target Vanessa, and generally making a spectacle that neither he nor his child bride wants. So we're at a stalemate that strongly resembles me winning completely. And the woman? Vanessa? We had coffee. You what? I shrugged. I wanted her to see me, to understand that I'm not just a convenient villain in her romance novel. I'm a real person whose life she helped destroy. What was she like? Young, foolish, convinced she's special. Everything I probably would have been at 29 if an older married man had paid attention to me. Do you hate her? I considered the question. No, I pity her. She thinks she won something, but she just inherited my problems with none of the foundation I had. Give it 10 years, 5 maybe, and she'll understand what she signed up for. Jenny was quiet for a moment. Do you still love Dad? Did I? I'd loved the man I married, the one who sang while doing dishes and cried at school plays. But that man had been slowly disappearing for years, replaced by someone who checked his reflection and sent emojis to women young enough to be his granddaughter. I love who he was, I finally said. I love the memories, the life we built, the daughter we raised, the small kindnesses we showed each other before he decided that wasn't enough. But the man who left? The one who texted you instead of calling, who spent our retirement on hotel rooms, who looked me in the eye and lied for 7 months? I don't know him well enough to love him. That's a very diplomatic answer. I'm trying to be mature about this. Mature is overrated. You're allowed to be angry. Oh, I'm angry. I'm furious. I'm so angry that I broke into an apartment and booby-trapped lingerie like I was in a spy movie. But I'm also tired, Jenny. I'm tired of being angry at someone who isn't worth the energy anymore. We finished packing in silence. Jenny loaded the boxes into her car. She'd take them to Robert's new apartment, she said, because she wanted to see his face when he realized how little he'd actually taken from our home. Will you be okay? She asked before leaving. Alone in this house? I've been alone for months. Now I just don't have to pretend otherwise. After Jenny left, I wandered through rooms that suddenly felt too large and too quiet. 47 years of life, and now it fit into a few boxes in my daughter's trunk. How did that happen? How did decades compress so neatly? I found myself in the bedroom. Our bedroom, though I supposed it was just mine now. I'd need to redecorate, change the curtains, move the furniture, erase the geography of a marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Marcus Chen, checking in. Are you all right?" I smiled. Marcus had checked in every few days since delivering his report, a kindness I hadn't expected, but deeply appreciated. "I'm surviving," I typed back. "The divorce is moving forward. Thank you for everything." "Anytime. If you need anything else, evidence, support, someone to talk to, I'm here." "Actually," I wrote, "I might need some advice about rebuilding a life. Do you have experience with that?" "Some," he wrote back. "My wife left me 5 years ago. I'm still learning, but I'm happy to share what I've figured out so far." "Coffee sometime?" "I'd like that." We made plans for Tuesday, the day that used to mean Robert sneaking off to Vanessa and would now mean coffee with someone who understood what it meant to rebuild from ruins. The divorce took 3 months to finalize. Robert signed everything I put in front of him, eager to be free, eager to start his new life unencumbered by the weight of the old one. I got the house, the savings, the retirement accounts, the car, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd outmaneuvered him completely. Jenny threw me a divorce party, her idea of ironic celebration. She invited my book club, some old friends, and even Marcus, who brought wine and stories about his own post-divorce adventures. "To new beginnings," Jenny toasted, raising her glass, "and to my mother, who proved that getting older just means getting better at revenge." Everyone laughed. I clinked my glass against hers and smiled. But that night, after everyone left and the house was quiet again, I sat in my bedroom, decorated now in colors I'd chosen without consulting anyone, and thought about what I'd actually won. I'd won my pride, my dignity, my financial security. The satisfaction of proving I wasn't the foolish, trusting old woman Robert had assumed I was. But I'd also lost 47 years of partnership, the comfort of shared history, the easy intimacy of someone who knew me completely. I'd lost the man I'd married, even if that man had been slowly disappearing for years. Was it worth it? The question kept me awake. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Robert at the grocery store. He was in the produce section, looking confused by the variety of lettuce, while Vanessa, wearing yoga pants and an expression of barely concealed impatience, scrolled through her phone nearby. He saw me. Our eyes met across a display of organic tomatoes. For a moment, I saw recognition flash across his face, not just of me, but of what he'd lost. The easy partnership, the unspoken communication, the decades of accumulated shorthand that made life flow smoothly. I saw him realize that Vanessa didn't know which lettuce he preferred, or that he only ate tomatoes if they were sliced exactly half an inch thick, or that he needed reading glasses for grocery labels, but was too vain to wear them in public. I saw him understand finally what he'd traded away. I smiled, nodded, turned back to my shopping. "Eleanor," he called out. I stopped, turned back. Vanessa looked up from her phone, suddenly alert. "Yes, Robert?" "You look good. Happy." "I am happy. Thank you. I wanted to apologize for how everything happened. You deserved better." "Yes," I agreed. "I did. I hope you can forgive me, eventually." I studied his face, older now, tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. He looked like a man who'd gotten exactly what he wanted and was slowly realizing it wasn't what he needed. "I don't know if I'll forgive you, Robert, but I've stopped letting you take up space in my head. That's probably close enough." Vanessa appeared at his elbow. "Robert, we need to go. I have a meeting." Always a meeting. Always somewhere more important to be than here, in this moment, dealing with the complicated reality of choices made. "Of course," Robert said. "Eleanor, this is—" "We've met," I said pleasantly. "Hello, Vanessa. How's your skin? Any lingering issues?" Her face flushed. "No, no issues." "Good, that's good. Well, enjoy your shopping." I walked away, leaving them standing in produce, probably arguing about lettuce and meetings and why nothing felt as easy as they'd imagined it would. Marcus was waiting in my car. We'd come to the store together, a casual Saturday afternoon errand that was slowly, carefully becoming something more. "Was that him?" Marcus asked as I climbed into the passenger seat. "That was him." "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Relieved. He looks so tired, Marcus. So much older than when he left. And she looks restless, like she's already scanning for the exit. Karma? Maybe. Or maybe just reality. Turns out fantasy is exhausting when you have to live it every day. Marcus started the car. "Where to?" "Anywhere but here." We drove along the coast, windows down, radio playing songs I didn't recognize but enjoyed anyway. Marcus told me about his work, a case involving insurance fraud and a deeply stupid criminal who'd posted evidence of his crimes on social media. I told him about my book club, how we'd abandoned literary fiction in favor of mystery novels because we're all at an age where we appreciate practical problem solving. It wasn't romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was comfortable and easy and made me laugh, which was more than I'd experienced in years. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said, as we watched waves crash against the shore. "Of course." "Do you regret it? The itching powder, the confrontation, the way you handled everything?" I thought about the question seriously. Did I regret becoming someone who broke into apartments and booby-trapped underwear? Did I regret the calculated coldness with which I'd dismantled my marriage? "No," I finally said. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Robert made choices that forced me to choose between dignity and doormat, but I don't regret choosing dignity. Even if it meant losing him? I lost him months before I did anything. He made that choice. I just decided to have a say in how the story ended." Marcus nodded. "My wife left me for her personal trainer. Cliché, right? For months, I was convinced I'd done something wrong, that if I'd just been better or different or more attentive, she would have stayed. But eventually I realized that her leaving had nothing to do with me. She wanted something different, something exciting, something that made her feel like she was 25 again. And I couldn't give her that because I'm not 25, and neither is she, no matter how many hot yoga classes she takes. Did it get easier? Eventually. Very, very eventually. But yes, one day I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about her in 3 days, and then it was a week, and then I started building a life that was mine, not ours, and I liked it. How long did that take? About 2 years, but I'm slow. You're much more efficient. I laughed. I'm motivated by spite. Very effective fuel. Whatever works. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the ocean perform its eternal routine of advance and retreat. Somewhere in the distance, seagulls argued over food. Closer, a family built a sandcastle that tomorrow's tide would erase. Everything was temporary. Everything ended. But that didn't make it meaningless. "Thank you," I said softly, "for being here, for understanding. For not thinking I'm a crazy old woman who's lost her mind." "You're not crazy. You're someone who fought back. That's not insanity. That's survival." "Is that what you tell all the elderly vigilantes you meet?" "Only the ones who buy me coffee." I smiled. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple that didn't exist in nature except right here, right now, in this moment that would never come again. 47 years had ended, but I was still here, still breathing, still capable of laughter and new friendships, and days that stretched ahead with possibility instead of routine. Robert had tried to write me out of my own story, to make me the chapter that ended so his new narrative could begin. But I'd grabbed the pen back. I'd written my own ending, messy and imperfect and a little bit criminal, but mine. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. 6 months became a year became 2. Life continued as it stubbornly does, regardless of our plans. I redecorated the house, traveled to places Robert never wanted to visit, took a pottery class and discovered I was terrible at it but enjoyed the trying, started volunteering at the library, helping elderly patrons navigate computers with the patience of someone who remembered when research meant card catalogs and encyclopedias. Jenny visited often, sometimes with her partner David, sometimes alone. We talked about everything except Robert, until enough time had passed that we could talk about him without pain, just sadness for something that had been good once before it wasn't. Marcus and I continued our friendship, which eventually, carefully, became something more. Nothing dramatic, no grand declarations, just the slow accumulation of shared moments that added up to something that felt like home. I heard about Robert occasionally through the inevitable gossip network that connects everyone in a mid-sized town. He and Vanessa had married, a small ceremony, no family invited. They'd bought a condo downtown, the kind of modern space that looked beautiful in magazines, but probably echoed with all the conversations they weren't having. Jenny told me they'd been to her office once, Robert introducing Vanessa to his daughter with the forced enthusiasm of someone trying to sell a product he wasn't entirely convinced by. "How was it?" I asked. "Awkward. She called me Robert's daughter like she'd forgotten my name, or never learned it, and Dad kept talking about how happy he was, how this was the life he'd always dreamed of, how everything was perfect." "And was it? Perfect?" Jenny paused. "He looked exhausted, Mom, like being that happy was a full-time job he couldn't quite keep up with. And she kept checking her phone, even during lunch. I don't think she said 10 words to me that weren't about herself or her career." "Are you okay?" "I'm sad. Not for what they have, but for what we lost. Dad used to be present, not perfect, but there. Now he's just performing, playing the role of the man who made the brave choice to pursue true love. But I don't think he's convinced the audience." "He made his choice, sweetheart." "I know. I just wish his choice hadn't meant losing my father." We sat with that truth, heavy as stones. 2 years after the divorce, I received a phone call at 3 a.m. "Robert." "Eleanor?" His voice was thin, frightened. "I'm in the hospital." I sat up, instantly awake. "What happened?" "Heart attack. Minor, they said, but it felt—" "Eleanor, I thought I was dying." "Where's Vanessa?" Silence. "Robert, where's your wife?" "Conference, in Seattle. She couldn't get a flight back until morning." Of course. Always a conference, always a meeting, always somewhere more important. "Do you need me to come?" "Would you? I know I have no right to ask, but Jenny's in Boston for the semester and I can't. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I dressed quickly, drove to the hospital through empty streets, found him in a private room looking small and gray against white sheets. "Eleanor." His eyes filled with tears. "You came." "Of course I came. We were married for 47 years, Robert. That doesn't disappear just because you did." I sat beside his bed, held his hand, the same hand I'd held through births and funerals and ordinary Tuesday evenings watching television, and let him cry. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "The biggest mistake of my life." "Don't. You're scared and vulnerable, and this isn't the time for revelations. You'll regret when you're better." But it's true. I traded everything, real for something exciting. And now I have excitement that feels empty, and a wife who's always somewhere else, and a daughter who looks at me like I'm a stranger. "Robert, let me say this. Please. I need to say it." He gripped my hand. "You were right. About everything. Vanessa doesn't know me. Not really. She knows the version of me I performed for her, but she doesn't know the man who cries at school, plays, or sings while doing dishes, or needs things arranged just so, or he can't sleep. She doesn't care about those things. She loves the idea of me, but she doesn't love me. And what do you want me to do with that information? I don't know. Forgive me? Take me back? Let me fix—" "Stop." I pulled my hand away. "You don't get to have a health scare and rewrite history. You don't get to decide you made a mistake and expect me to absorb you back into my life like the last 2 years didn't happen. I'm not your safety net, Robert. I'm not the backup plan you return to when your grand adventure gets complicated. I know, but nothing. You made choices. You live with them. That's how consequences work. Don't you still love me? And there it was. The question he'd been circling around, the one he needed answered to feel secure in his moment of vulnerability. Did I still love him? I love the man I married, I said carefully. I love the father Jenny had. I love the partner I built a life with. But you? The man who spent $35,000 on a mistress, who texted our daughter about our divorce, who stood in front of me and lied for 7 months. I don't know you well enough to love you. That's what you said before, when I left. And it's still true. Maybe more true now. You've become someone I don't recognize, Robert, and I've become someone who doesn't need you. That's not cruelty. That's just reality. A nurse came in, checked his vitals, adjusted something on the IV. Robert lay back against the pillows, looking older and more defeated than I'd ever seen him. "Will you stay?" he asked quietly. "Just until Vanessa gets here." I wanted to say no, to tell him that his comfort wasn't my responsibility anymore, that he'd forfeited that right when he chose another woman's bed. But I thought about 47 years of accumulated kindness, of the person I'd been before bitterness tried to reshape me. "I'll stay until morning," I said. "Not for you, for the man you used to be." I stayed in that uncomfortable hospital chair, watching him sleep, listening to machines beep and hiss and monitor a life I'd once been intimately connected to. Dawn crept through the window, painting everything in shades of gray that slowly warmed to gold. Vanessa arrived at 7:30, breathless and apologetic, wearing the crisp business attire of someone who'd come straight from the airport. "Oh my God, Robert, I'm so sorry. The flights were all delayed and I couldn't get here any faster and—" She stopped, noticing me for the first time. "Mrs. Mitchell?" "He called me. You were traveling. Someone needed to stay with him." Thank you. That was kind of you. It was human of me. There's a difference." I gathered my purse, preparing to leave. Robert was awake now, watching us both with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Eleanor," he said, "thank you. For coming, for staying, for being exactly who you've always been. Get better, Robert, and maybe think about what you want your life to look like when you do, because this—" I gestured to the hospital room, the absent wife, the ex-wife called, in the middle of the night. "This isn't sustainable." I left them there, husband and wife, to figure out whatever their marriage was becoming. In my car, I called Marcus. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately. "I'm fine. Tired, but fine." "Want company? Coffee? Breakfast?" "Yes, all of that. I'll meet you at the diner in 20 minutes. "I'll be there." I drove through morning traffic, watching the town wake up, shops opening, people rushing to work, life continuing in its relentless forward motion. Somewhere Robert was being monitored and assessed and probably having difficult conversations with a wife who'd rather be at a conference. Somewhere Jenny was teaching her classes, building her own life independent of her parents' drama. Somewhere the world was spinning forward whether we kept up or not. At the diner, Marcus had already ordered my usual, tea with honey, wheat toast, scrambled eggs. He didn't ask questions, just let me sit and breathe and slowly return to myself. He asked if I still loved him, I finally said. "What did you tell him?" "That I loved who he was, not who he became. Is that cruel?" "It's honest. Honesty isn't cruelty, even when it feels like it." He said he made a mistake, that he wants to fix things. "What do you want?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Did I want Robert back? Did I want to return to a marriage that had been slowly suffocating me for years? Did I want to be the woman who took him back, who absorbed his betrayal and his return and his inevitable next crisis? "I want peace," I said. "I want mornings like this, with someone who chose to be here, not someone who returned because his other option got complicated. I want a life that's mine, not a resurrection of something that was already dying." Marcus reached across the table, took my hand. then that's what you build. It's that simple? It's never simple, but it's possible. We finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Outside, the town continued its morning routine, indifferent to the small dramas playing out in hospital rooms and diners, and the quiet spaces where people decided what their lives would look like. I thought about Robert lying in that hospital bed, probably realizing that excitement and novelty and the thrill of forbidden romance don't mean much when you're scared and alone and the person you need is the one you discarded. I thought about Vanessa, rushing from airports and conferences, building a career while trying to maintain a relationship with a man who would always compare her to a ghost. I thought about myself, sitting in a diner with a man who'd survived his own betrayal, who understood that starting over didn't mean erasing the past, just learning to carry it differently. And I realized something. I didn't need Robert to understand what he'd lost. I didn't need Vanessa to regret what she'd taken. I didn't need revenge or vindication, or even an apology that mattered. I just needed to keep moving forward, building a life from the pieces I'd chosen to keep. The itching powder had been satisfaction. The divorce had been necessity. But this ordinary morning in a diner with someone who saw me clearly and chose me anyway, this was victory. Not the dramatic, explosive kind. Just the quiet triumph of a woman who'd been written out of her own story and had grabbed the pen back. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I'm 72 years old, and I'm finally, completely, wonderfully free.